All right, today we're going to be writing parallel and perpendicular equations, but we're going to have to write a certain equation based off some given criteria. So the most common type of problem is they'll say, here's an equation. I want you to write another equation that's parallel or perpendicular, but it has to go through this particular point. So an example of this is, let's say that I have this parallel line. And they say, I want another parallel line, but it has to go through this point over here. So how do you figure out the details in order to write that new equation? So that's what we're going to learn how to do today. We're going to learn how to write an equation given the parallel or perpendicular slope and an actual point that it needs to go through. So, couple of steps. The first thing that you need to do is you need to know what your original slope is going to be. That original slope is going to come from the original equation. Why do you need the original slope? Well, you need it because in step 2, you have to determine the parallel or perpendicular slope. And you have to be able to state if it's the same for parallel or opposite reciprocal for perpendicular. And then step 3, you're actually going to use that parallel or perpendicular slope, and you're going to use the point that was given, and you're going to use that to find the missing value, which is the intercept value. Because we know the slope, we just need the y-intercept in order to write the new equation. So what we're going to do is we're just going to go ahead and jump right into the first problem. And in this first problem, it says they want us to determine, so it says write an equation that is parallel, and it has to be parallel to this original equation. And it has a y-intercept of -2. All right, so this one is actually going to be pretty easy. This is already giving us all of the information we need. So in our new equation, we need to be able to write two things. We need to be able to write the slope, and we need to be able to write the y-intercept. Well, we know the slope. So if I'm looking at this problem, the original slope is 1/2. And it wants us to be parallel, so the parallel slope is also going to be 1/2. So we know that the slope for our new equation is going to be 1/2. So that's the slope we're going to use. Now, they also told us that their y-intercept is -2. Well, that y-intercept is -2. So therefore, our new y-intercept is -2. So my new equation that is parallel is 1/2 x -2. That was a pretty simple example. So if I graph this in Desmos, so my original problem was y equals 1/2 x 1/2 x plus 6. And then we found the new one to be y equals 1/2 x -2. And we can clearly see those are parallel, and that does have a y-intercept at -2. So always graph it and just make sure you got the correct answer. All right, so let's look at our next example. So the next one says that we want to write an equation, but this time it wants to be perpendicular to this particular equation, and it has to go through the point that is a y-intercept at -2. So again, in order to write my new equation, I need to write y equals mx plus b. I know that my original slope is 1/2. But what I want is the perpendicular slope. So my perpendicular slope is going to be that opposite reciprocal. Okay? So the opposite reciprocal means I'm going to take that negative or that positive 1/2 and make it negative, and the 1/2 and make it 2. So for our equation, we're going to use the perpendicular slope, which is -2. Now, we also need a y-intercept. Well, it told us the y-intercept is -2. So I can use the y-intercept, which is -2. So my new equation that is perpendicular is y equals -2x -2. So let's go look at it graphically. So we have the same problem from before, so y equals -2x -2. And you can see that it is perpendicular. Now, again, those were pretty simple. Let's talk about what happens when it may not give you the y-intercept. How are you going to find the y-intercept of the problem? All right, so looking at this first example, it says, what is the equation of the line that passes through the point? So we have to find the equation of the line that passes through the point this time. So they didn't give me an intercept. They gave me just a single point. We want it to be parallel, but it has to go through, has to be parallel to this equation. Well, again, we need to write a new equation, y equals mx plus b. We don't know the slope. We don't know the slope because this is in standard form, okay? And we don't know the y-intercept, so we're going to have to find those things. We're going to have to find the slope and the y-intercept. Well, let's start by finding the original slope. So the original slope, we're going to have to solve for y. And we're going to solve for y so that we can determine the parallel slope. So I'm going to start by subtracting x. So 5y equals negative x plus 20. We're going to divide by 5. And we're going to want to simplify here. So when we simplify, we're going to take negative 1 and divide it by 5. So that's going to be negative 1 over 5x. And we're also going to take 20 and divide it by 5. So that's going to be plus 4. This is our original equation. So just to be clear, this is the original. Okay? So my original slope is negative 1/5. So they want us to tell what the parallel slope is. Well, the parallel slope is the same, so we're going to use negative 1/5. So a parallel slope is negative 1 over 5. Now, the other thing we're missing is our b value. We're missing that b value. We found the m, but we're missing the b. So how are we going to actually find that b value? So to find the b, the y-intercept, we are going to substitute in our point and our parallel slope. All right, so in my problem, this is x, this is y. So y equals mx plus b. I'm going to substitute in negative 5. My parallel slope is negative 1 over 5. My x is positive 5 plus b. And we're going to have to simplify this. So negative 5. So I have negative 1 over 5 times 5. If you are not aware, this is negative 1 times 5, then divided by 5. But you can always plug in Desmos, and you can say negative 1 over 5 times 5, and that gives you negative 1. So negative 1 plus b. And you're going to have to solve for b. So to solve for b here, we are going to add 1. And we find that our b value is equal to negative 4. Well, we now have enough information in order to write our new equation. So we know our parallel slope is negative 1 over 5, and our b value is negative 4. So my parallel line that goes through that point 5, negative 5, and is parallel to that particular equation is y equals negative 1 over 5x minus 4. So I put in my parallel slope and my b value. And again, I can check this in Desmos. I can plug in the original equation. So the original was x plus 5y equals 20. I can also plug in my point. My point was 5, negative 5. So we need a line that's parallel and goes through that point. So we found the equation y equals negative 1 over 5x minus 4. And I can see that it's parallel, and I can see that it goes to that point. All right, so just to review, just make sure we had to solve my equation to get my slope. I needed the slope, and I determined that the parallel slope was negative 1 over 5. I used that parallel slope and the point, and I plugged it into our equation y equals mx plus b in order to find my y-intercept, my b value. And I found my new equation. All right, so let's look. Now, the key to this is being organized. Write your stuff out, okay? Write your information so you don't get anything confused. So for this problem, they want a line that passes through this point, and it's perpendicular this time, but it's perpendicular to this line. So again, for this equation, I'm going to have to solve for y. All right, so to solve for y, I'm going to start by subtracting 5x. So negative 4y equals negative 5x plus 16. And then I'm going to divide by negative 4. All right, so y is going to equal, now let's make sure we simplify correctly. So I have negative 5 divided by negative 4 is going to turn into positive 5 over 4x. And then I have 16 divided by negative 4, and that's going to turn into negative 4. So my original equation has a slope of 5 over 4. But I don't want the original equation, or original slope. I want the perpendicular slope. So remember, we need to be able to write the equation at the end. So my perpendicular slope is going to be negative 4 over 5. So that's the slope that we're going to use, negative 4 over 5. All right, so we know our slope. Now we need to find our b value. We're going to find the b value by using the point and the perpendicular slope. Don't make the mistake and use the original. Use the perpendicular because you want the perpendicular line. And we're going to plug all that into y equals mx plus b. So we're going to plug in negative 8 for y, because remember this is x, this is y. My slope is negative 4 over 5 times my x value, which is 5, plus b. So negative 4 over 5 is technically negative 4 times 5, which is negative 20. Then divided by 5 will be negative 4. But again, if you feel like you would struggle with it, then do negative 5 divided by 4 times 20, and that, times 5, and that gives you negative 4. So I have negative 8 equals negative 4 plus b. And we're going to solve for b by adding 4. And b equals negative 4. So I now have my perpendicular slope, and I have my b value through that point. So my equation is going to be my perpendicular slope, y equals negative 4 over 5x minus 4. All right, so again, I can go to Desmos. Let's graph the original equation. So I have 5x plus 4y equals 20. I believe that was what we had. Not at all. So we have 5x minus 4y equals 16. They want us to go through the point 5, negative 8. So I'm going to just put that point in. So 5, negative 8. But it needs to be perpendicular and needs to go through that point. And we found y equals negative 4 over 5x. So we see it's perpendicular already, but did it go through that point? The only way that it's going to go through that point is if I have the correct y-intercept, which is what we found. So I have negative 5 over 4x minus 4. Okay. Now, I understand this is a little bit more of a written process, but make sure you stay organized. Make sure you show all your information here. It's going to help you more in the end. All right, so for this equation, what is the equation of a line that passes through the x-axis? So this one doesn't necessarily give me a point, it gives me a detail, and is parallel to this equation. All right, so a couple of things. If it's the x-axis, that means that it's going to cross at 6, 0. So we do have a point. We just had to recognize that if it crosses the x-axis at 6, then the point is 6, 0. All right, so we're going to have to solve for y again. All right, so we're going to subtract 5x. So that's going to give me 3y equals negative 5x plus 6. And then we're going to divide by 3 and simplify. All right, so make sure we're simplifying correctly. So we're going to do negative 5 divided by 3. So that's going to be negative 5 over 3x. And then we're going to do 6 divided by 3, which is going to be plus 2. So my original slope in this problem is negative 5 over 3. We want it to be the parallel slope. So my parallel slope is going to be negative 5 over 3. So we're going to now start writing our equation, but we got to finish finding the rest of the pieces. So we know that the parallel slope is negative 5 over 3. So what we need to do now is we actually need to find our b value. We know the slope, we need our b. So we're going to use the point that we found, which was the x-intercept 6, 0, and the parallel slope, which is negative 5 over 3. And we're going to plug those values in. We know this is x, we know this is y. So y equals mx plus b. So 0 equals negative 5 over 3 times 6 plus b. So that's going to be negative 5 times 6 is negative 30. Negative 30 divided by 3 is going to be negative 10. But again, you can go put it in decimals. So we have negative 5 divided by 3 times 6. Again, we get negative 10 there. So we have 0 equals negative 10 plus b. And we just need to finish solving for b in order to get that final piece. So add 10. And b equals positive 10. So we now have the parallel slope and we have our b value in order to write our equation. So y equals negative 5 over 3x plus 10. Go graph in Desmos and check it. So we had 5x plus 6y equals, 3y equals 6. And we have y equals negative 5 over 3x plus 10. And we can see that it does go through that point, 6, 0, that x-intercept, and it is parallel. All right, so the last example, this one says it wants to go to the point 1, 6, and it is perpendicular to this equation. So again, we're going to have to solve for y. If it's already solved for, that's great. That's one less step. But you've got to remember when it's in standard form that you've got to solve in order to determine your original slope. So I'm going to start by subtracting x. So 3y equals negative x plus 27. Then I'm going to divide by 3. And simplify. So y is going to equal, remember there is a 1 in front of that x, so that's going to be negative 1 divided by 3. So this is going to be negative 1 over 3x. And then we have 27 divided by 3. And then we have 27 divided by 3 is going to give me 9. So my original slope is going to be negative 1 over 3. But I don't want my original slope. I want the perpendicular slope. So the perpendicular slope is going to be the opposite sign, so positive, and flip it to make it 3. So when writing our equation, we now know that the perpendicular slope is 3. So we know the slope, now we need to find b. So we're going to use the point given, 1/6, and that perpendicular slope. And we're going to plug it into y equals mx plus b. So it's going to be 6 equals, my slope is 3, my x is 1, plus b. So 6 equals 3 plus b. And then we're going to solve by subtracting 3. So b equals positive 3. So I now know my perpendicular slope and my y-intercept. So my point is 1/6, and it is perpendicular, goes through that value. So I have y equals 3x plus 3. And again, go check it in Desmos. So my original was x plus 3y equals 27. They asked us to go through the point 1/6, and it needs to be perpendicular. We got y equals 3x plus 3. And we can see it is perpendicular, and we can see it goes through that point. So stay organized, write everything out. I know it's a process, but the more organized you are, the easier it's going to be for you in the end. Please contact us if you need help, if you need extra videos, whatever it may be, let us know.